do this shit until they murder me.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another World of Tanks console video. My name is XenoZats and today's video will be featuring the King Dragon Type 59 that was introduced a few months back in its Tier 8 Chinese premium medium tank. Now this is the Type 59 without the preferential matchmaking along with the cool dragon designs that was introduced a while back. And don't worry, this is a revision of the King Dragon that was introduced along with update 4.4, and we'll be going over all the buffs that was implemented onto the tank and keep you guys up to date on these stats. Now I said I would be doing these and I plan on continuing these for any tank that receives a buff. Please, if it's different from the tank review that I have prior, if I haven't covered it yet, just let me know ahead of time or in the comments of that video, and I can always reintroduce a revision of the tank review. So, moving along, we're going to go into the first parts of the stats that changed for the tank, which would be the gun stats. Now, I want to talk about the gun stats because they're a little bit different. Everything else, as far as the mobility stat, survivability stat, concealment stat, and spawning stat, remained the same for the tank. Those were not touched. However, we're going to be going over the gun of the tank because that is what was upgraded. You can see I've marked out the Type 59 from the previous tank review so that we can keep the King Dragon improved, as I call it up top, versus the King Dragon Type 59 that was introduced in the prior tank review. Now, you will notice right away that the firepower stat for that is actually jumped up to 40 from the 34. That is because Wargaming have decided on bumping up the gun to the 105 on the Type 59. Now, I believe this was introduced, this is an actual historical gun, the 105 L7A1. I don't remember the exact tank designation. I did go over that a lot in the updates. However, we're going to be focusing on what we're looking at here. The reload of this tank for the 105 is 13.18, which is a little bit higher than the 9 seconds with the 100, but doesn't really dampen the DPM in general, and we'll get to that in a second. Base rate of fire is 4.55, can always be improved, and that is again slightly lower than the base rate of fire with the 100 mil. However, this was one of my concerns when you introduce a tank with non-preferential matchmaking, and I've stated it time and time again with all the tanks that they introduce. 190 millimeters for this 100 millimeter gun just can't pack a punch when it goes into its bottom tier matchmaking against tier 9s and tier 10s. Now, while I'm not really too happy with the 200, just 10 millimeters jump. The reason why the 10 millimeters isn't quite as bad is because they also switched the ammunition type of the tank. Now, prior to the buff that the King Dragon received, the standard round on it was AP, the premium round was APCR, and the HE was the final round. However, they decided to swap it around and give the King Dragon with the 105 a APCR standard round with the 200 millimeters of penetration, a heat round with 250 millimeters of penetration, which kind of begs the question. It's only 3 millimeters thick, 3 millimeters higher on its penetration than the APCR round prior, so it kind of seems a little bit odd there for a 105, but that's not too big a deal. The HE has an extra 3 millimeters as well. However, now you're packing 390 alpha damage on the gun for the 105, and that really does play out better in your bottom tier matchmaking games than the King Dragon prior to its buff, or update 4.4, whichever you want to consider it as, the improved King Dragon. The shell cost did go up a little bit, 580 on its standard rounds, 4,800 on its premium rounds, 410 on its heat round or HE rounds, which is a big step up from the 252 that the standard King Dragon had before, but that's because of the simple shell change should affect the shell costs. However, the shell velocity on a standard round is 1,450, which is even higher than the 1,125 that the King Dragon had prior with its APCR rounds as its premium. So that's a good jump up. However, it does lose shell velocity when you use heat rounds, 980 meters a second, but keep in mind that heat rounds do not lose penetration over distance, so it maintains the 250 over those long distance shots. Just keep in mind, again, because it's slower, you will have to kind of lead your targets quite a bit for that. The HE rounds have dropped as well to 700. It's a little bit disappointing that it's actually relatively slower than the other rounds. However, you're normally keeping those for lightly armored, and normally when you're going against artillery and they're that close, having them run away, 700 doesn't seem all that bad. The ammunition capacity is still the same. It has 50 rounds. However, again, because of that 390 alpha, you can see that the DPM has actually jumped up to 1,774.5. This is slightly in line with the Type 59 currently. However, you have to keep in mind that the Type 59, the standard variant of the Type 59, has preferential matchmaking, so having that DPM on its 100 makes more of sense. The King Dragon with the 105 does feel a lot better now that it can deal out more damage. You know, it might not do it as frequently, but it can dish out more damage per shot. Now, a few other things that changed with this is the dispersion. Dispersion prior to update 4.4 was 0.37 at 100 meters, 0.51 when moving the tank, and 1.21 when rotating the tank. This has gotten slightly better with the 105 with 0.36 at 100 meters, 0.50 at when moving the tank, and 1.20 when rotating the tank. Now this is all that has changed on the tank, but this and dispersion makes up a lot better with sniping with the APCR rounds. I do like the fact that this tank can now snipe a lot better with standard rounds than it previously did, and it became one of those things because that's more what I used the Type 59 for, was just using a lot more premium rounds because of the shell velocity. Now you don't necessarily need to worry about that. You can snipe a little bit more with the King Dragon, and when you're going against more heavier armored tanks, using the heat round should be a little bit more fundamental, or at least more used to what the standard type of brawling is. The Type 59 definitely benefited off this, and I can't wait to show you guys the replay that's coming up, just because there's a significant difference in the amount of enjoyment that I got out of the tank after this buff that made it seem like it was definitely the right choice, and I know a lot of people might disagree. However, again, putting a tank with only 190 millimeters in the prior to update 4.4, this tank was just not enjoyable. It just wasn't ready to be able to be stacked against tier 9s and 10s, even with the better and improved gun stats. Now this tank is definitely going to be a competitor as far as being able to play out some of the other tier 8 medium tanks. However, that's enough of me rambling on. Let's head over into the gameplay and actually show you guys what I mean. So this will be the first game I played in the King Dragon Type 59 on Siegfried Line War. Now this is the literally first game I played since update 4.4 with the King Dragon. I hadn't played anything previous to this because, again, I didn't really enjoy the 100 mil on the gun on the tank, so I pretty much took a backdrop to it. Man, that sounds really weird. I don't know why. I still love the aesthetic of the King Dragon. You can see the mobility is still really good. Just the main drawback for me was the 100 millimeter gun on it. DPM was better on the standard Type 59 with preferential matchmaking. So having this tank here Still has decent mobility. Is able to get up in a good position for the King Dragon here. Now I'm going with the Skoda on my team, Skoda T50, and there's two enemy Skodas up here. You can see he tried pushing around, and we're pretty much in a little bit behind compared to the enemy team. But you can see standard round APCR, premium round is heat, and that HE is the final round. So who's going to be the first victim for the shot? Unfortunately for the WT Panzer IV, I get a good snapshot into him. Now, although the alpha on the gun is 390, I have to say that more often than not, the gun kind of gave me pretty low rolls. I've rarely hit 390. I don't know if that's just in my situation. Majority of the rolls, again, was pretty much coming under 390. I was getting 380 at most. 385 is the highest I remember seeing. That might be a lie. 389 was the highest I remember seeing. That one I do remember for a fact. And that doesn't include the ammo rack. I had an ammo rack on a T110E5 as well as an ammo rack on a OHO. So those ammo racks definitely don't count. You can see he puts one into me, but I can sneak some more shots into him. Again, I'm not firing HE at him, but you can see I am doing a little bit better with this. Now, unfortunately, the reload on it's a little bit long, but for a 105 tier 8, it's not the best. It's not the worst. I do like this though. 384 for that roll. That was a great shot. Managed to snapshot as well as avoid the Skoda on the hill, but he's just firing heat at this point, and I noticed the Panzer IV is pulling up, so I decide, okay, well, is he going to come directly around the hill, or is he going to go towards the back? Unfortunately for him, I don't know what he was thinking. He decided to pull back, and I was like, oh, snapshot. Got the snapshot in right between that little target there, and unfortunately for him, the dead tank ends up absorbing that. So the Skoda and I decided to push up. The IS-7 and the... Oh, I'm not pushing up right with him, but I'm trying to keep up, staying out of this enemy Skoda T50's sight. And Skoda with that 3-round autoloader puts a great amount of shots into the IS-7. The Crown Wagon's just rolling around there. He knows he has 4 shots. I decided to finish off the Object 430 and just watch the Crown Wagon just pump the rest into that IS-7. Now, he did bounce there. The IS-7 is looking at me, but turns to the side, messes up his angle, and unfortunately gets put down. Sorry about the sound. I had no idea that actually happened, and it's really weird. Normally it never does that. Moving along, our team pretty much has been dominating this, but you can see that in just a few shots you got to see great gun handling from the tank. The .36 dispersion was definitely noticeable in that. I will say it does kind of feel a little bit lackluster. I would have liked it a little bit better, but hey, you give some, you lose some. This is definitely a better gun to play with, more fun than it was with the 100mm. T57 and the artillery are the only ones left, and I think the Skoda up on the top is the one who's going to get him. So I decided to push around, yep, there it is, and go for the T57. And this Object 268 was like, this is mine, and nails it. Rolls right on top of him. Alva took a shot, finished the game, 8 hits, 3 enemies down. $2,181 damage dealt for 8 penetrations, 940 assisted. Still just a second class mastery. However, we did get the Levislai host medal. And 8 shots fired, 8 direct hits, 8 shots penetrated. And with this APCR round, I like the tanks that use APCR as their standard, because it just feels, with that shell velocity, you don't have to lead as much. You're able to just point shots with the auto aim. More often than not, tends to go right where it's aimed at. Even with the increased ammunition cost for the Type 50 or the King Dragon, 73,867 base silver earned is very good. Now I do run premium account, so I do make a total silver 103,607. But the base silver for those people who don't and just want to get the King Dragon is still a great profitable tank. More so now than it was prior. 1,419 base experience, 3 enemies destroyed. Did manage to bounce a shot. Not in this replay, I think it was a different one, but 448 received from that Panzer IV, so he was definitely used the 12.8. 1,419, talked about that. Premium vehicle bonus is 213, and that doesn't include the crew training that it actually does as well. Not a bad result. You can see, I believe I do keep going over to the efficiency screen on this one, as I wanted to make sure I showed exactly who I was shooting at and the amount of damage I dealt to that person. A little bit more. If I skip ahead, I'll pretty much end the video, so apologies for this. It's a little bit longer than I want it to be. Okay, all 5 shots that I fired managed to hit the Panzer IV dead on. Very good rolls. Again, I don't think any of the rolls were above 384, the last one I saw. None of them were that high, but again, 5 shots taking out that. I get the Object 430 for a finisher, the IS-7 for a finisher, and another shot on the T-57, which was a roll around 374. And I think that's a good soft spot, although the Alpha is supposed to be 390. Having a shot around 380 still feels you like you're getting robbed, but not too much to the point where at least you're firing and dealing a lot of damage per shot. However, this was just the first game of the night that I had played with it, so I figured I would keep going and carry on and head over into a lot of games and see as much as I could play for the night and try to get good results for the tank. Now keep in mind, I still am not a fan of Chinese tanks. However, I do like playing this tank a lot more, and you'll definitely notice that in the second round of gameplay here. So pulling up this time on Sand River, you will again see I'm in a top matchmaking compared to the prior one, which tier 8's bottom matchmaking, still pulling well against some tier 9s and 10s. This time we'll be able to see how it performs against some lower tiers. Again, I'm not sure what happened with that sound. It doesn't sound that bad, but it does now. It looks like it went a little bit too low. I might have to check into that when I'm recording. Alright, so moving along, the King Dragon still has great mobility. It did not lose any of that prior to update 4.4. It kept it. That I like. And again, this gun just feels a lot better than it did in all the games I played throughout the night. Progressively, whether I was top tier or bottom tier, the gun just feels like it works more for this. Now, as stated from the developers on stream, they had pretty much said that the reason the tank gun or the barrel of the tank is not thicker is because it would change the in-game model of the tank, and that would require, since this was pretty much a borrowed model, they would rather not adjust it and have to change anything. Just knowing that even though the barrel looks the same as it did prior to update 4.4, it now packs that 105 on the gun. So keep that in mind. Now, the Type 62, the Dragon Type 62 will remain the same, so if you ever see Dragon and King Dragon, just know you won't have to worry about that. Will probably cause some confusions later on. And boom, 393. I guess I lied. Or was that 83? Not too sure. Very good shot there on the first tank, Scorpion G. 402. Well, you know what? Maybe I wasn't paying attention too much. Probably because of the lighter armored tanks that I'm able to get more penetrating on that. The Adler VK4503 right beside me, being a support to the humongous gun on this tank compared to prior. I like it. It really does feel great. See the snapshots, or well, not snapshots, but the aim time is 2.3 seconds. Not the best, but still great. Going for a tracking shot. I don't know how the Adler bounced off of the Scorpion G. Really mystified me. However, that Scorpion G decided to stay right there. So, misery. The Carnarvon, just not able to put one in. And I was actually surprised I only tracked him. No damage on that side, but hey, at least the Adler got a good shot into him. Now, the King Dragon still has 7 degrees of gun depression, and while better than most Chinese, I'm still used to some of the higher ones. Great snapshot there for that one. The Carnarvon can't go through the turret, so he's not really going to be able to contest anything there. Unless I pull up, give him the underside of the front of the hull, so let's not do that for him. And I do get shot right here from the A44, and it was actually mystifying to me. He actually hit the rear of the tank. You can see I was even in game. I was just like, what? How did that even manage to shoot me from the outside? Hit the rear. I thought it hit the Dragon, and it ended up pinning and tracking. No damage, luckily, but still, a very good shot by him. So rather than continue pushing with the Adler, I decide I'm gonna go help the Hammer and take care of this Black Prince. The Black Prince just has really good DPM. He probably would have gave the Hammer good fighting there. So decided to give him a track, give the Hammer a little bit of a run, and boom. So you can take out your lower tiers a lot faster than you probably would. Again, the 100 didn't have as good as DPM. It had 1,600. I don't remember the exact numbers at the end. I think 63. The 1,700, 1,700 on this tank definitely suits it better. And that was pretty much the standard Type 59's DPM. So while I think this is slightly higher, keep in mind again that the rate of fire and your reload will pretty much keep you in line as far as something like this. Get tracked, A44 is pulling up, but I couldn't snapshot into it, and you can see that the A44 right there, although he's just tracking me, the T43 has enough penetration to go through the front of the hull, and that's something you have to keep in mind. Oop, bounced off the turret. Guess you aimed a little bit too high there. Now I come over the hill and look at it. Snapshot 343. That still mystifies me for the low rolls on this. Now I make a little bit of a misplay towards the end of this video, and that's probably my own fault. Along with that shot, I thought I was coming over a little bit faster. I ended up slowing down and not paying attention directly to the map. I know that I thought that the Banshee had moved up. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. The A43 is right down here. The Banshee is right up on top. So instead of staying there, I thought with a 390 alpha gun, no, it's just not the case. Two guns, very rapid firing. Banshee is definitely rapid fire. One of the better assets for the tank. Can definitely out DPM the King Dragon. And that's to go to show you that even though it has the capabilities of being able to take out your tank faster, DPM in a sense will still outdo you if they can aim at your weak spots. And unfortunately, I don't know if that Banshee was firing APCR, but going straight through the front of the tank again, two tanks, very rapid firing, being able to take you out. That tends to happen more than you would like. So definitely a mid to long range tank, especially with those APCR rounds. And you can see I had quite a good game. 3,581 damage, 1,690 damage blocked, 1,059 assisted damage. Overall, a great result, and it still is just a second class. Again, don't play Chinese tanks that often, but I enjoyed playing this tank over the course of the night. than I would any of my other Chinese tanks. And that even includes the Yasi, because even though I spec'd it out for view range, you kind of want to be able to shoot things more often than not. 1,695 base experience, 101,558 silver. Even though it doesn't get preferential, the tank still makes a good amount of money, and I like that. It's a crew training tank. It's still a tier 8, so it still makes a good amount of silver. Um, Overall, there's no more downside to the tank, I feel. It's fairly well balanced in this. Still has decent mobility, like the Type 59. Still has great gun handling, gun characteristics that the King Dragon was introduced with. It's just that, again, they improved on the thing that it was lacking, because it gets standard matchmaking, which was damage and penetration. Overall, this tank definitely had a great buff in update 4.4, and I have to say, honestly, if you ever get the chance to purchase this tank, don't hesitate on buying the King Dragon this time around. I purchased it on the first time because I liked the simple fact that it was a great in-game model tank. You can see that I love the Type 59G that's on PC. However, I now really like the King Dragon Type 59 on console. It stands out on its own, and it definitely shows up the standard Type 59 or Type 59G that is on PC, as again, they only carry the 100 mil. And my dog seems to be barking now, so I'll wrap this video up, guys. Again, I hope you enjoyed it for update 4.4. It was a great little tidbit from the developers to be able to introduce this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good night.